The birth of a philosophy, gross national happiness. To understand the instructions beside that gate, we need to step into a quiet room in the 1970s, where a young monarch watched a country with few roads and many rituals ask what progress should look like. Jigme Singh Wangchuck was in his teens when he took the throne in 1972. He'd seen neighbors measure themselves in factories and 5-year plans. He looked at steep valleys and monasteries that counted seasons, not quarters, and said something simple that would echo for decades: we'll pursue gross national happiness. First, it wasn't a spreadsheet, it was a posture. The idea landed as a sentence reported in newspapers, then hardened into pillars. If you're going to say happiness matters more than output, you need to show what you mean. Bhutan's answer became 4: sustainable development, cultural preservation, good governance, and environmental conservation. Not as slogans, but as a map for choices. Do you blast a road along a cliff? Only if the forest survives. Do you welcome neon and sitcoms? Only if the language and clothes still fit the halls of government. This was the moment everything changed, because a philosophy became policy. Over time, researchers in Thimphu and visiting academics built the GNH Index, a complex survey that asks about health, education, time use, cultural participation, psychological well-being, and more, tapping core drivers of satisfaction, status, and meaning that people share everywhere. Households answer questions that would never show up in a GDP ledger. Do you volunteer? How often do you pray? Do you feel safe at night? Do you feel your time is respected? The state didn't abandon cash, it reframed it. Money is one instrument in a larger orchestra. You can be richer and worse off if you lose the tune. Action followed in places you can touch. The Constitution, drafted under the same king and adopted in 2008, commits the country to keep at least 60% of its land under forest cover forever. That's not marketing. It's a legal promise you can test by satellite. In offices and schools, traditional dress, go for men, kira for women, remains required, a daily ritual that puts fabric where philosophy lives. In classrooms, Zonka holds priority even as English drives global exams. GNH isn't a museum plaque. It's a dress code, a forest clause, a planning meeting where a road alignment shifts to spare a ridge. Meanwhile, something else was happening beneath the surface. GNH became a brand as much as a belief. Delegations flew in to study it, leaders flew out to speak about it. The phrase offered a moral shield for moving slowly. If a dam took longer because resettlement was careful, that could be happiness. If a TV tower came late, that could be happiness. The story turned lack into choice. In a region where modernity often crashed into identity, Bhutan argued for pacing, not rejection. We're not poor because we can't. We're selective because we choose. But there was one problem baked into the phrasing. Happiness sounds soft. It invites cynicism. You can measure kilowatts. Can you measure contentment without telling people how to feel? Psychologically, happiness triggers status comparisons and suspicion if trade-offs aren't explicit. The index tried. It sliced well-being into domains and thresholds, then tracked them over time. Policymakers used it to test proposals. Would a new policy raise the share of people who say they have enough time to rest, who attend local festivals, who trust their institutions? It wasn't perfect, but it gave ministers a knob to turn that wasn't just growth at any cost. Micro-stories make the philosophy real and relatable. A planning officer briefs a village on a road diversion that preserves a sacred grove at the cost of 20 extra minutes to market. A ranger counts black-necked cranes in winter because their arrival signals ecosystem health. A civil servant folds his go in a government hallway, then steps into a meeting about hospital staffing ratios. None of these moments say happiness out loud. They live it by taking trade-offs seriously and writing them down. What nobody knew at the time was how much pressure that framework would face once the gates opened wider. In 1999, when TV and the internet arrived, aspiration got new channels. Later, when hydro debt swelled and youth looked abroad, happiness had to account for plane tickets. Still, the pillars held shape. Sustainable development meant pausing some projects or pricing tourism high. Cultural preservation meant sometimes telling a teenager to swap a hoodie for a go before an exam. Environmental conservation meant elephants eating maize would trigger a compensation claim, not a cull. Good governance, the fourth pillar, quietly did heavy lifting. Under royal guidance, Bhutan moved to constitutional democracy in 2008. Elections began, cabinets changed, and the monarchy stayed popular by stepping back from daily power while steering the long arc. That made GNH feel less like royal decree and more like a national habit. You could argue with policies without arguing with belonging. Here's where it gets hard. Happiness as policy looks wise when the world waits. When the world rushes, it can feel like a break. Youth logging into Classes C salaries in Melbourne and Vancouver. Farmers filing crop loss claims want faster payouts. Hotel owners built for high-value tourists don't fill rooms after fee hikes. GNH doesn't disappear in these frustrations, it gets tested. The same logic that kept forests standing has to explain empty dining rooms and packed IELTS centers. And yet the blueprint still reads clearly from the mountains. If you must open, open on terms that keep the pillars upright. Charge for access so numbers stay low. Teach children to speak the national language and a global one. Count trees like assets. Use surveys to catch loneliness before it becomes policy failure. The philosophy doesn't ban the modern world, it tells it to wipe its feet. To carry that posture into money and borders, Bhutan needed a lever. It found one in price. If happiness is the goal, you discourage the kind of contact that erodes it and encourage the kind that pays for schools without scuffing festivals. That's where tourism stops being a postcard and becomes a gate with numbers on it. Pricing the world out, high-value, low-impact tourism. To turn philosophy into a lever, Bhutan set a price on entry, not a ticket at the border, a daily system. For years, the rule was simple on paper and strict in practice. Visitors booked through licensed operators, traveled with guides, and paid a minimum package rate that worked out to about $250 a day. That money covered hotels, meals, transport, and a royalty to the state. The message wasn't subtle. If you want to come carefully, come with context, and pay for the privilege. Fewer feet on trails, more money for schools. The intent had layers. Culture isn't a museum, but it frays if you flood it. A high price kept numbers manageable and filtered for travelers who'd respect monasteries as living places, not sets. It also solved a hard problem fast: foreign exchange. With few exports beyond hydropower, tourism became a clean artery. A trekker in a quiet valley could subsidize a clinic 2 districts away. The country chose impact per visitor over volume. Guides became interpreters of place, not just route finders. Hotels learned to sell quiet. Action looked practical. Tour operators crafted itineraries with dzongs, festivals, and treks, then ran them through a licensing maze designed to keep standards high. Guides trained in etiquette and history. Villages near routes learned the rhythms of tourist seasons without losing their own. There were rules about where you could go, what you could wear in sacred courtyards, and how you behaved around butter lamps. This wasn't just logistics. It was a choreography meant to keep a line between ritual and show. Meanwhile, something else was happening in ledgers and lobbies. The system worked well enough that investment followed. Mid-range and boutique hotels multiplied, banking on predictable flows of high-value, low-impact guests. The daily minimum felt like a guarantee. Then the floor shifted. After the pandemic slammed borders shut and wiped calendars clean, Bhutan reopened with a different instrument: a sustainable development fee, SDF, charged per person per night, on top of accommodation and services. The number jumped. Suddenly, the price wasn't embedded in a package, it was a meter ticking. Intent didn't change: protect culture, protect nature, fund public goods, but the market did. Behavioral reality check, price anchors expectations, and a visible meter. The SDF feels like a toll unless value is shown fast. Affluent visitors paused. Budget travelers looked elsewhere. Neighbors offered open visas and cut-rate deals. Bhutan asked for patience and cash. The result in the short term was a paradox. Hotels built to insulate culture from crowds stood half-empty, their staff waiting by polished desks. The principle held, the balance sheet wobbled. Stakes got real for people with names. A family who'd taken a loan to expand 5 rooms into 10 now watched occupancy hover at a trickle. Guides who knew the migration patterns of cranes and the etiquette at Punaka Dzong picked up part-time work, their radios silent. Villages that had learned to host a small, steady stream now saw weeks pass with nobody asking for Amadachi recipes. Protecting culture by raising the drawbridge started to feel like starving the guards. But there was a reason to keep the gate narrow. Bhutan's trails remained pristine, monasteries didn't drown in selfie sticks. Festivals in places like Paro and Thimphu still pulsed with local meaning, even if schedules bent a little for outside eyes. The country preserved the one thing most destinations spend fortunes trying to rebuild once it's lost: authenticity. The price was a tool to keep that intact. Still, tools can be tuned. As debates swelled, officials adjusted, promotions on the SDF for longer stays, limited reductions to tempt travelers back without abandoning the model. Operators experimented with itineraries that emphasized community benefit, homestays vetted for standards, craft workshops that paid artisans directly, conservation treks where fees supported anti-poaching patrols. The lesson was clear. You can charge for access, but you have to show what the money does. Forest guards on payrolls, bridges repaired after monsoon, clinics stocked before peak trekking season. What nobody knew at the time was how quickly social media would shift expectations. Travelers used to open borders bristled at forms and fees, but a different cohort leaned in, those who wanted fewer people on trails, who valued a guide explaining why a prayer wheel spins clockwise and when not to point a camera. High value, low impact became a filter not just for wallets, but for behavior. Fewer arrivals, less noise, deeper attention. Micro-stories kept the stakes human. A guide stood outside Paro's airport, scanning a short arrivals list and calling his kids to say he'd be home for dinner. A hotel manager kept lights dim in empty corridors to save power while explaining the SDF to a couple at check-in, proud and apologetic at once. A village archery captain rescheduled a local match because a small group of visitors wanted to watch, then laughed when the visitors clapped at the wrong moments and taught them to cheer. The model's logic never claimed to be easy. It asked the world to slow down and pay up, then promised a kind of encounter that mass tourism can't deliver, a monastery where you hear the bell, a trail where you hear your breath. It also asked Bhutan to absorb volatility, pandemics, currency swings, traveler tastes, and to keep telling its story as a choice, not a scarcity. High price, low impact, steady dignity. But there was one problem no fee could fix. Tourism is a valve, not a foundation. When youth looked outward for salaries and adventure, a quiet hotel couldn't compete with a visa to Sydney. The gate could meter visitors, it couldn't meter aspiration. And as the signal from 1999 spread through phones in every valley, the script would have to adapt again. The switch gets flipped, 1999, and the first broadcast. The first pictures arrive like weather. It's June 1999, silver rain threads the roofs in Thimphu, and living rooms glow with boxes that were once illegal. Curiosity spikes, novelty bias does the rest. A royal announcement marks the occasion. Television and the internet are now permitted. The country inhales. For years, the walls were mountains. Tonight, the wall is light. Stakes aren't abstract. They sit on the floor, cross-legged. In one house, grandparents keep counting prayer beads while a nephew fiddles with a remote, trying not to skip the channels that carry news from Delhi and music videos from Seoul. Culture doesn't vanish because a signal lands, but it shifts the air in the room. The monks will still chant in the morning. The kid will still go to school in a go. But between those moments, there's cricket, Bollywood, a Premier League match called in a language he already speaks. Action looks simple on paper. Satellite dishes sprout like cautious mushrooms on balconies, status symbols as much as signal. Cafes paste handwritten internet signs in windows, the connection crawling through a narrow pipeline that groans every time a new PC whirs to life. The first national broadcaster fills its grid with a mix: local bulletins, imported movies, carefully chosen programs that suggest a shape to the day. The censors don't swing hammers, they tune. Content is curated the way entry gates once were, not fully open, not fully closed. Meanwhile, something else is happening in shops and alleys. Video rental racks appear beside prayer flags, their covers shouting in fonts no one used here before. A shopkeeper in Thimphu who once sold incense and butter lamps now stacks DVDs and football jerseys behind the counter. On weekends, streets that used to quiet after dusk pick up a new rhythm. Kids debating which striker is the best, aunties comparing Korean dramas, uncles swapping jokes from a sitcom that no minister planned to import. This was the moment everything changed, because aspiration found pictures. It's one thing to hear about a world beyond the pass. It's another to see a city you'll never visit lit like noon at midnight. Youth who'd grown up measuring distance in switchbacks now learned to measure it in buffering bars. The internet was slow, but it was there, and it moved faster than a convoy on a mountain road. Impact arrives in schools first. English, already a tool, becomes a door you can feel under your hand. Teachers begin competing with screens for attention, then borrowing the screen's energy to teach. A geography lesson turns into a website tour of the Amazon. A civics class ends with a clip from Parliament in another democracy. A Zonka teacher asks students to translate a pop lyric and cringes at the slang, then smiles when the metaphor lands. There was one problem. The same stream that carries a World Cup also carries advertising, celebrity gossip, and a different set of values about success and speed. The dress code at the office still says Kira, the video says denim and a haircut from a mall in Bangkok. The monastery still expects a bowed head. The talk show teaches raised eyebrows and snappy comebacks. Cultural preservation, once enforced by distance, now needs arguments, stories, and a steady hand on the programming schedule. Governance adapts. Media laws appear, standards are drafted, and a state accustomed to guiding roads learns how to guide a feed, shaping attention, not just access. It's not a ban, it's a filter. Broadcasters get nudges about timing and tone. Editors learn the line between critique and offense without seeing it written down. Self-censorship grows in small choices, an image replaced, a headline softened, a story delayed until a ministry calls back. The smile stays, the boundaries move. Micro-stories carry the tension. A monk in Punaka catches a cricket score on a borrowed phone, pockets it, then rings a bell for evening prayers. A teenager in Funsholing watches a K-pop dance tutorial, practices in secret, and wears his Go sharper the next morning. A civil servant drafts a memo about online conduct, then forwards a YouTube clip he knows will get a laugh, hoping the joke doesn't cross a line he can't fully define. What nobody knew at the time was how quickly phones would swallow the living room. For a few years, television felt containable, schedules, channels, a set. Then data plans got cheaper and screens slipped into pockets. The gate that opened with a ceremony now lives in palms and pushes alerts at dawn. Still, the 1999 flip set the template. The state would welcome technology but pace it. Citizens would absorb the world but keep a foot on the monastery floor. That balance isn't a compromise you write once. It's a daily practice, a broadcaster deciding whether to air a contentious debate, a parent negotiating homework, and a match that goes to penalties, a policymaker staring at a graph of youth engagement and asking what to do next. The signal got in, the mountain didn't move. Both facts are true, and the real story is the choreography between them. Governance as gatekeeper, soft authoritarianism with a smile. When the signal arrived, the referee followed.